So now everybody can hear us. So everybody can see you now. So say hello.
Hi.
We only have one viewer right now, but it's one more viewer than we're expecting to have.
It's
So
also early on a Sunday.
yeah, that's true. I think it might even be a bot because it was the same viewer that was watching me while I was playing the other day.
Okay.
So yeah, it very well might be a bot, but that's fine. So what's going on? How's everything?
Oh, good. One of my neighbors though had a party last night, and
Oh yeah.
I normally there are a lot of people like in summer where we live like that have parties, whatever. But so the music's out like on like kind of late, whatever. But they were like doing karaoke, and I was like, oh God, I can't stand the sound. Like they should not have done karaoke.
Oh, some people are just good singers, and like, I don't know. I feel like if you're not, I feel like karaoke is something you have to do. One of those very few things that you have to do when you're intoxicated, because if you're not, everybody there, none of your friends are professional singers, so like they're gonna sound like crap. So then again, on the Sober Highway podcast, we're not encouraging you to drink when you do karaoke. What we're saying is if you if you are well aware that your friends are terrible singers and you're okay with that, then go do some karaoke. It may be a good opportunity to even make a fool of yourself in front of your friends and help you step out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, I think they should have just left the music on and not done the karaoke yesterday. I
That's
think that probably would have been a better idea. Because I'm like trying to go to sleep and it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock, and they're like little hyenas out there.
yeah, yeah.
I was like, okay.
So how has work been for you the last couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks, it's been the usual. It's busy. I actually have because I take insurance. They do audits every so often, so I actually got information regarding an audit. So like I'm a little busy because I'm trying to just make sure I get everything in. Um,
Which company's auditing you?
um, I don't know if I'm like really allowed to say. I don't know.
Oh,
Like
okay,
so, we'll not. But
okay,
um, I don't really have any concerns or anything. It's just annoying, you know,
right.
trying to print everybody's stuff out, go through all their files, in addition to seeing my normal caseload is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it comes with the territory, right?
Mm-hmm. Mom fuel. Uh,
This is actually my sister-in-law's cup
okay.
um, that I got her for Mother's Day, and I'm stealing it.
Oh, okay. So are we ready to make that announcement on the podcast now?
Um, yeah, I guess. Um,
Because that could be a really big that could be something big that we announce on, like, we get to pull some people in on our Instagram and our TikTok and whatnot.
yeah.
So,
So
Anika,
yeah,
without further
I
ado, go
I
ahead.
am I'm pregnant. I'm actually very pregnant at this point. I'm in my last trimester. I'm due in several weeks. So it's really exciting.
Can
Um,
we can we see a side profile?
no, not right now. It's like first thing in the morning.
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
I'm wearing sweatpants that have holes in them because I want it to be comfortable.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All good.
This little child, he likes to sit on my bladder too,
Okay.
all day, every day, all night, every night.
Yeah.
Um, it's like his little pillow. So it's been real fun.
I bet.
Um,
I bet.
you know, but it's good. I'm very, very grateful for this experience, this journey, and I'm excited to be a mom.
Mhm.
Um, it has not been easy by any means.
Mhm.
I know some women are like really lucky and they're like, oh, like I felt great and everything was fantastic. Like I was freaking like puking my guts out for like the first, like 17 weeks.
Okay.
Um, It was really awful. I had to take medication for it. I still take medication now, actually, for the
Yeah.
nausea and vomiting. Um, but the second trimester, there was like a nice little sweet spot in there where like I was feeling pretty good. I had energy. I didn't feel it nearly as sick. And like now I'm like, okay, I'm just large,
Hmm.
tired. This child is like 4 some pounds already.
You know, my best friend Tom just had a baby, and I think you guys both, for the people that are, for the one person that's listening, or the people that are going to be listening to this after the fact, um, I knew Anika was pregnant this whole time.
Yeah.
So my Anika and and my friend Tom, his wife, were, I almost feel like they were kind of both, they both got pregnant at the around the same time. So I was kind of trying to figure out, like, I was thinking like which one's gonna give birth first, and fortunately for Tom, they had their baby. I think it was like last week or a week and a half ago or something like
Oh,
that,
nice.
and they had a beautiful baby boy who looks just like him. By the way, it's crazy. Um, and what's funny is whenever I see people like having baby, like when you see it on TV and it's supposed to be like one of those like, oh, we're taking our baby home things. It's like the baby's always crying, the parents are always up, and it's just like, it's like, oh yeah, it's beautiful now, but once you get the baby home, it's like madness.
Mhm.
And for him, it's been like all chill.
It's so funny that you say that though, because I have a couple friends that also had babies like during COVID and stuff,
Yeah.
and all of them have like super chill babies.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how much of it has to do with like people maybe not necessarily doing the same things that they were before, so they're maybe feeling a little more calm throughout the pregnancy, and then the
Mm-hmm.
baby's not necessarily having the same exposure to all the stimuli right away
Mm-hmm.
because parents are trying to be a little more cautious or because there are restrictions in different places. And I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, I wonder how much of an effect that actually is having, because I've met so many little calm babies lately, or people have been telling me about their babies that are like super chill.
Mm-hmm. That's weird.
So
Hmm.
in case anybody that's listening was curious about doing a study, that might be something that want to look
Yeah.
into.
You know, the other thing, I'm actually interested to see whether or not your baby has is kind of has like your complexion or Carlos's.
I'm guessing probably somewhere in between. And so it's so funny because I was saying the other day, so because like I'm mixed, um, in winter my skin's really light, and then in summer typically like I even if I get like a little bit of sun,
Hold on one sec.
um,
You sound kind of choppy really quick. It's weird.
that is weird.
You hear what I'm
Nothing,
talking about, right?
yeah, but nothing has changed.
That's very weird. I don't know.
Um,
Go ahead. I'll let you know if it happens again.
but yeah, so in summer normally like I get like a little bit more tan and like the olive complexion and everything. And this year I haven't really been outside. I've just been I have a lot of work and we're busy and we're trying to prepare obviously. And I'm like I'm turning into Casper the ghost right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think
Uh,
that's going to change anything as far as the
no,
baby's concerned.
no, it's not. But it's just to me it's so bizarre because normally like I'm always like outside. It's summer. Um, but this year it's just like I look like Casper the ghost, and it's okay. But yeah, I think in terms of
Look at
he'll
me.
probably yeah.
I'm freaking pale as a ghost too, and and Michelle is I don't want to say she's fair skinned, but she's very light skinned as well. So you
But
know,
like Carlos, he does this. He's the same way too, though. In summer, he gets much darker than in winter. I guess that like naturally happens to like those of us that have like more mixed ethnicities
is it?
typically.
You said Carlos is Dominican, right?
Yeah.
Oh well, they're just a naturally dark people.
Well, yeah, but like so his we did the ancestry DNA like for like our parents
Mm-hmm.
for Christmas and everything. And so like his parents are mostly like Spanish, Portuguese, West African, and like indigenous Native American,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is pretty typical of Dominican. There's like a couple smidges of like random other stuff. Like he's like Ashkenazi Jew came up, which like is not the race,
Hey,
but like whatever. That's a whole separate fact that I won't get into.
welcome to the tribe, Carlos.
um, then there was I think like some like Chinese or like some Asian as well, like a very very small percentage. Whereas like my family, I actually thought was going to be a little more mixed than it was, and it really was not. My mom came back like truly like super German Swiss, like a particular area that like the border always used to change.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's from Germany, and then like my dad came back as Indian, like North Indian Pakistani,
Mm-hmm.
without like anything else, which we did not expect. We thought that he was going to be mixed with like a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting.
That is very cool.
So yeah,
Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to check out the recordings for something. Okay. Um, so my past few weeks have been interesting as well. So this past weekend, I went to the Cape for my mom's birthday, which was so much fun. I haven't been up to the Cape in so long, and
was it really busy there? Like and like crowded, like gang, like traffic, like sitting in traffic and stuff.
well, here's the deal. I left for the Cape from Manhattan right after I finished work. So I didn't have to deal with any of the traffic of getting into the city. And I honestly didn't hit much traffic in New York. It was more when I got to Connecticut. Like when you like there's like if, for those of you that don't know, like when you're traveling up I-95, there's a bunch of like big cities that you have to hit on your way up 95. So after New York, like after New York City and Westchester, you hit Stamford, then Norwalk, Bridgeport, and then there's New Haven, and then you hit, I believe, I can't remember, there's Mystic, New London, and then you hit,
Hartford.
no, Hartford is further
You
north.
don't.
You don't hit,
Oh,
no, you don't go through Hartford. And then you hit Rhode Island, and then once you get to Providence, then you get onto another highway, and that takes you east, and then you go over the Bourne Bridge, which puts you on the Cape. Um, so, like I was trying to say, the traffic was more, um, when you were like approaching those cities. I would say New Haven is kind of like the halfway point, I think.
okay.
But like there really
Yeah.
wasn't that much traffic because it was closer to the evening.
So
Once you,
that's nice for you.
yeah, yeah, I was very grateful for that. And being up there and seeing my parents again was absolutely amazing. Because I hadn't seen them since like in person since like April.
Hmm.
That's what happens when
Yeah.
they retire and leave your leave you stranded. No, I'm
They're
just
probably enjoying their retirement.
Oh, well, my dad loves being retired, but he actually just got a part-time job working for the Cape Cod Transit Authority. So like he's going to be driving the buses on Cape Cod,
Okay.
which is so cool. And that's honestly like the perfect job for my dad because my dad loves to drive. Like that's what he does. Like his whole career with the FDNY was driving an ambulance. So he just loves driving. Whenever we go on family road trips, he would drive.
That's
So like
cool though.
that's like the perfect thing for him. Um, so we went out to dinner on, I can't remember which night we went out, but then we ended up cooking it, bringing in one night. My aunt and uncle came over. I grilled on the barbecue for them, and then we went to Hyannis, which is basically like the main in my opinion, is like the main hub of Cape Cod.
Mm-hmm.
That's where like all the major shopping is, all the big restaurants and whatnot. Like if you need like there's like a Home Depot there, all that stuff. Like if you need stuff that's outside of like your small little mom and pop shops, you got to go to Hyannis. And so there was like a big craft fair. So I bought a couple of posters to hang in our apartment. And I don't know, it's just weird because they have like I'm used to going to like a craft fair in the city and seeing like Mets merch and Yankees merch and Jets, Giants, Rangers, Islanders. And I forgot for a second that I'm in Massachusetts, right? So, like, I'm walking through this thing and I'm starting to see like Red Sox and Celtics and Patriots, and I'm just like, ugh.
You're like, what's going on?
I'm just like disgusted, and as soon as I see all of those logos, I just think of Tim's face. Just like,
Poor Tim gets dragged into this.
Well, I'm trying to engage the 2010 Minutes podcast in a little bit of mental health podcast beef. We'll see if he'll respond. I doubt it, but yeah, I mean, it was just weird. It was honestly just a little weird to see all that stuff, and these guys were trying to sell me stuff, and I'm like, listen. I pulled down my Mets hat. I'm like, it's not really my team. And they started breaking my balls. I'm like, you know what? Now I wasn't going to buy from you because you were selling Boston merch. Now I'm not buying from you because you're a jerk.
It will make you very happy to know that this baby has a little Mets onesie.
Great. And by the way, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to text you after this is done. Because I'd like to send you a little something when the baby is born.
So thank you.
Do you have a registry or something?
I do. I can send it to you.
Perfect. Okay.
He's definitely going to be a little Mets fan because Carlos is a Mets fan too.
Beautiful.
So,
we should go to a game. We should go to a game. The four of us.
Yeah, we actually, so every year normally him and I go always to the Subway Series in July. Okay. It's like a thing we do, like we've done since we started dating. And this year we didn't go because I was just like, I can't do anything.
And you know what I noticed? Like, because Citi Field is near Flushing Bay, when it's hot, especially like in the evening time, it gets very sticky.
Sticky, yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't like to be bothered with that. To be honest with you, I like more of the fall games, like once you get into like late August, early September. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to deal with like the crazy sun or like the early spring games, And between you and me, I prefer night games over day games all day.
Well, it really depends, right, on like what your week looks like. But yeah, night games are nicer because it's not, you don't have to be in the beating sun.
I don't know if this happened to you when you were growing up, but like I used to come home from school at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and my dad would be like, "What are you doing tonight?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, after you're done with your homework, you want to go to a Met game?" I'm like,
"Oh, that's so cool."
Okay, that sounds like fun. I mean, it only happened like 2 or 3 times, but it was still kind of fun to do.
My dad would be like, "Do you want to watch cricket?"
I'm trying to. I'm always fascinated by sports. So, like if I could, like if someone was willing to like watch a cricket, is it a cricket match? Is it called a match? So if I wanted to watch a match with someone and someone was willing to sit down with me and like teach me about the game, I would love to do that. Like for example, the Olympics are on right now, and I'm trying to watch archery. And the problem with
I figured you probably would.
Yeah, so the problem with archery is it doesn't, like, they usually don't start broadcasting archery till like 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it goes till sometimes like 1 or 2 in the morning. And the USA team is shitting the bed right now. Um, they got eliminated from the mixed team competition. The women's team got doinked by Russia. So we're still waiting. We're still waiting for the men's team and the women's individual, and the men's team, men's individual, and women's individual. But so far, the U.S. team as a whole is kind of shitting the bed because I don't think they have any medals yet, which is not good. So Team USA, step it up. I mean, come on. I mean, we can't go to Tokyo and not come back with any medals. I mean, we will, but like these archers are so freaking good. I mean, it's not even like the USA is bad in archery. It's just the other teams are so good.
So good. Yeah. And it's interesting because like archery is not something like in the US that's like super like competitive and like I'm sure in the circles of people that actually do archery it is really competitive, but in terms of like public like popularity and things like that, it's not really, right?
Yeah, I mean, archery is very popular. It's very, very popular in South Korea. And I'm pretty sure in South Korea it's like the national sport, which is why the South Koreans, are absolutely dominating right now. I'm pretty sure they've won like every gold medal, since archery joined the Olympic Games, some shit like that. I know the last few Olympics they've been killing it. The women's team just the women's South Korean team set an Olympic record this year in qualifying. It's just I can't believe how good they are. But I don't know why we got off topic, but
we always do.
So here's something that we can talk about. So the hospital that I work at, in Manhattan, we have been seeing a lot of overdoses coming in. A lot of the overdoses are opioid overdoses. The patients are getting Narcan in the field. And then when they get to the hospital, when we ask them, like, hey, you overdosed and we had to Narcan you, and they're like, why was I Narcan? Like, I didn't use dope, right? So that leads us to conclude that whatever it is that they're using, whether it's K2, whether it's PCP, whether it's crack cocaine, crack or cocaine, that it's being cut with fentanyl.
Well, I mean, we kind of knew that some of that was going to happen, right?
Right. I mean, I knew that was a thing.
But you're seeing it now, like in the hospital, like in the emergency room.
Yes. So one of the doctors who is an absolute rock star, that's what I call her. I'll just call her Dr. Rockstar for the purposes of this discussion. And it'll probably be a common theme because this is something that I'm working on at the hospital with her. She's like, we need to figure out like ways to make people use safely. So I figured what we could do is do a little talk about harm reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Have we done an episode completely about harm reduction?
I don't know if we've necessarily done a full episode on harm reduction. I know that we've talked about it a lot in different settings, like in terms of like abstinence is not the only way of dealing with
right.
recovery, right? Or to deal with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked about it in terms of like smart recovery, allowing harm reduction as part of what they believe in,
mm-hmm.
although they do like abstinence, but they are totally accepting of harm reduction as an additional standpoint. But right. I don't know if we've really ever done just harm reduction.
Right. So for those of you guys that are listening, that are going to be listening to this after the fact, I would say there's two main approaches to addiction recovery. One of which is as old as time, and that's the abstinence only approach, and that's basically saying, well, if you want to be drug free, like if you want to be sober, and drugs and alcohol have been causing your problems, then to achieve sobriety, you need to eliminate all drugs, all alcohol from your daily lifestyle, your activities, whatnot. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So all like, um, yeah, it's like, and not all drugs are illegal, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
drugs that are mind altering in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol.
That's, I mean, whether or not the drug is illegal is irrelevant when you're talking about like the approaches to recovery, but essentially what we're getting at is if you want to be clean, at the abstinence only approach is no drugs, no alcohol, nothing.
And that's what most like treatment centers will kind of say is
Mm-hmm.
abstinence only. 12-step programs will say abstinence only, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of getting help, there's a lot that focus just on abstinence.
Right. The second approach that we're going to talk a little bit about, and different examples of this approach, is what we call harm reduction, and it's essentially it's in the name, right? With this approach, we know that people are going to continue to use. We know that people are going to continue to drink. So let's try to eliminate as many potential risks for harm as possible.
Mhm.
Um,
And that can
so
mean a lot of things, right?
right, exactly. So one example of harm reduction, um, which was something that Dr. Rockstar brought up, was we should be distributing fentanyl testing strips, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, what a testing strip is it's a little piece of paper, right, that you dip into the solution that you're about to inject into your arm, or if you're a person that snorts drugs, you mix a little bit of whatever it is that you're snorting with some water, and you dip the strip in it, and if the strip turns blue after a few seconds, or turns whatever color it is, then you know that whatever you're about to inject or snort has fentanyl in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's like
that
those little litmus tests back in
exactly
like middle school chemistry, right? High
right,
school chemistry.
right. So she thought that this was an amazing idea because she's like, damn, we're getting all of these people coming in that are overdosing on opioids
That have no idea.
that have no idea that they're overdosing on opioids, and like that's a problem. So granted, there's probably a whole bunch of other things in the drugs that they're snorting, but fentanyl is the one that's probably going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
That has the greatest chance of killing you. So I reached out, I took that, and I took that suggestion and I ran with it, and I went to my higher ups, and basically they were saying, well, I think that's a really good harm reduction tool, but, we kind of want to go with the route of, okay, well, we want to tell our patients, don't use by yourself, know your dealer,
Because your
you,
dealer is going to be real honest.
have a naloxone kit, things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, as soon as this guy just sent that email, I went to Dr. Rockstar. I was like, did this guy really just say know your dealer? And because I've had that conversation with my patients before, like, how do you know that what you're getting is safe, like, is actually the drug that you're looking to use? And they're like, oh, well, I buy my drugs from the same guy all the time. I'm like, okay, well, then how do you know that that guy's not getting the same drugs from his guy? You know? So I basically turned around and I said, well, I think the naloxone kit is a really good method of harm reduction, but
Mhm.
with the fentanyl testing strip, you're giving people a
An
way
additional tool.
you're giving people an additional tool, and you're preventing you could possibly prevent an overdose before it happens, whereas when you have the naloxone kit, if that person is if that person is not is if that person is using alone, there's no way that they're going to use that naloxone kit in time to save their life.
No, and the other thing with naloxone too, and fentanyl in particular, is sometimes it takes more than one kit of
Exactly.
naloxone, right?
Exactly.
So like say you're even using with someone and you have one naloxone kit, but it has like whatever you're using has a high amount of fentanyl in it. One naloxone kit might not be enough.
That's why when we distribute the kits, when we're like they give us like pre-made kits to give out to patients in the ED, they give us 2 doses.
Yeah.
And we tell the patients, if you use one, even if you use one, come on back,
We'll replace
let us
it.
know, and we'll replace it for you, no problem.
Yeah.
Naloxone is usually free. I've never had to pay to get a naloxone kit from anyone. Whenever you go to a Narcan training anywhere on the island, anywhere in the state, they give you a kit to take home. So, and a lot of places that give out the kits, you can usually call them and they'll tell you where to go to get another
I
to
was
get a
just going to say
yeah.
that they do say that like if it's used before like another training comes up or something, there is a number for you to call so you could swap it out and get a new one.
Right.
Um, you can buy it at the pharmacy
Yeah, you can
too,
get it at the pharmacy,
but you
absolutely.
will pay for it at the pharmacy.
Right. Unless a doctor has given you a prescription, I think you can
Okay.
get it for free. But here, as at the hospital, we could just give it to them without the
Yeah.
script. But I was telling them that the strips are a great idea because if a like normally when a patient comes in for an overdose, I ask them before they leave. I ask them, would you like a naloxone kit? And they're like, well, what's naloxone? What's Narcan? And I explain it to them. And they're like, no, I don't need that. If I turn around to them and say, listen, if you're gonna go out there and use again, I'm not gonna stop you. But you know what? Do me a favor. Take this strip
Just to see.
and just to check and make sure you're not injecting fentanyl into your body again, or you're not snorting fentanyl again. You know, and even if they take that strip or if they refuse the kit, like that strip is like a physical reminder of what I said to them while they're in the ED. Like I can still, even if they refuse the kit, I can still educate them on what an overdose looks like and what to do if you see someone overdosing. But if I don't give them anything to take out of the ED with them, they're going to forget that shit. And they probably
Mhm.
will forget it even if I give them the strip.
Yeah, they'll
But,
probably lose it. Like that's very common. People will lose it, misplace it. Oh, I don't need it.
right.
But it gives
Um,
them the opportunity at least to have it if they choose to use it or if they choose to like be more conscious about their use in some way.
exactly. Um, so just to summarize where we're at for right now. So examples of harm reduction techniques or tools, things that will eliminate risks for people that are using. So far we've talked about naloxone kits, right? That's an opioid overdose reversal drug that goes in the nose. It's an intramuscular injection. It could be an IV injection. Um, we also talked about the fentanyl testing strips. Uh, Things like not using by yourself.
Clean needle exchange.
That's the thing I was going to bring up. So, in New York, specifically New York City, I don't know if they have them across the state yet. There are places that you can go called syringe exchange programs. You want to talk a little bit about what those are?
Well, so basically, they're places where people who are using injections in particular, right? are able to go bring dirty needles to dispose of in the proper environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also get clean needles to use to prevent the spread of disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it's about, is reducing the risk of infection, disease, things like that. Because a lot of people that are using the same needle over and over, sharing needles, things like that, and so that has a lot of risk involved,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't stop people from using, right?
Which is why I notice a lot of IV users either have some sort of like something like hepatitis, or
Yeah, Hep C is really common.
Hep C is very common among IV drug users. A lot of people have HIV, or can contract HIV. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but essentially, one of the reason why this is considered a harm reduction tool is because when you're injecting drugs and you're sharing needles, like, you're putting yourself at risk for getting hepatitis, HIV, any other sexually transmitted diseases that the first person who injected was take has. So when you go to a syringe exchange program and you get a fresh, clean, sterile needle, you're not putting yourself at risk for contracting any of those viruses, diseases, things like that. And this is not just for people that are injecting opioids. There are people that inject, crack, people that inject methamphetamines, PCP, things like that. So this is a place where you can go. There's doctors, there's nurses that are staffed there, that are going to be supervising the people that are using, and there are also social workers there that can talk to patients and help refer them to treatment if they decide that they want potential risks outside of just using the drugs. The patient can eventually turn around and see, like, wow, these drugs are really fucking up my life. Let me get some help.
Mm-hmm.
And what bothers me about talking about harm reduction is when when you talk to those people that are, I would say, on the more conservative end of the political spectrum, and they talk about, well, this is just an excuse for people to get high. Like,
Yeah,
why should my tax paying money go to a government owned syringe exchange program so people can get high?
yeah.
And it honestly pisses me off, because they're not trying to see the true goal of what the program is intended to do.
Well, they're not seeing the true goal. They're also not, like, if you really want to bring treating, like especially a syringe exchange program, right? The cost of treating Hep C, HIV, abscess, infection, all of those things, right? Like the cost of that is way higher
Mm-hmm.
than the syringe exchange program,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when we actually think about those things.
Right.
And so again, yes, your money is going to prevent some of these things that otherwise would cost taxpayers lots of money, because these people end up in the hospital, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they don't necessarily have good health insurance. Then they may not have any health insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what's going on. And so, yeah, then it ends up kind of being the taxpayers' money that's going towards it. So why not try to prevent an issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other thing is too, like we've been saying, people are going to continue to use. Not everybody is at that point where they are able to stop or want to stop.
I had a patient come in the other day. They were a post-op recovery patient. They had surgery like a week or so ago, and like he had like staples all up the side of his ribs. And he was asking for to be referred to an inpatient while he was on the IP floor in recovery. He asked the social worker up there to be referred to a inpatient drug program, right? And apparently, before the referral could be completed, he he left. Whether I can't remember if he left AMA or if he signed, if they discharged him and the social worker just was dragging his feet. I don't know. So he's back in the ED. He's got rib pain. He's got abdominal pain. He's got back pain. I'm assuming because of because of the surgical site, it's causing him pain, whatever. So I go and I check in with him, and he's only reporting to me that he's smoking weed every day. So I'm like, how am I, like, I can't justify inpatient rehab for marijuana use. Like, that's going to be a tough sell. And I told my supervisor, I was like, I'm good. Like, I know what to say to an inpatient program to say, like, okay, we'll take this guy. But, like, that's a tough sell. That's going to be hard. I was like, I'm good, but I'm not that good. So I had to find the social worker that was on the IP floor, and I talked to him, and, like, he said that the patient also endorsed some alcohol use to the, when he first got up there. So I went downstairs back to him, and I was like, so you told me before that you're not using anything other than marijuana, right? I just spoke to the social worker that you met with upstairs, and he told me that you endorse some alcohol use. Do you remember we're saying that to him? He goes, yes, I do. I said, would you like to change your answer now? Because this can change where I ultimately refer you to. Because we've talked about it in earlier episodes, right? Alcohol use, you have to work when you have someone who's drinking, you have to think about withdrawal symptoms, which may have been why he was asking for residential treatment in the first place. So he says, yes, I drink alcohol. I said, how often are you drinking? He goes, I only drink on days that I smoke weed. I said, okay, well, you said you smoke weed every day. Does that mean you're drinking every day? He said, yes. I said, okay, how much are you drinking? He goes, let me put it to you this way, sir. He called me sir, which is kind of cool. He said, when I wake up in the morning in my bed, I never have any recollection of how I got into bed. I was like, so you're blacking out every day? And he says, yeah. I was like, okay, well, now you definitely need detox. And I believe I was able to get the guy into a program, like a detox program. But, like, I forgot where we were going with this. Where were we going with this? What were you saying?
I don't know, harm reduction. So I'm curious as to where this was actually going.
I don't know why. It brought me up to it. I can't remember why I was telling the story. I remember when I started telling the story, I was like, I'm going to connect it to what we were talking about, and then I forgot. Shit. Stop laughing at me.
Can't help it. But in terms of, yes, I think sometimes people, though, in all fairness, though, forget that alcohol is a drug as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or, again, because it's socially acceptable, that, like, oh, it's not really dangerous, right? That is totally not the case.
Right, and because marijuana is legal now, it kind of also changes how we document things in the clinical setting, because before marijuana was legal, I could just say patient denied using alcohol and all other illicit substances. Now I have to say patient denies using alcohol, marijuana, and all other illicit substances. So you have to be really careful, because if a patient says, yeah, I'm not using marijuana, or I'm using marijuana, and you write patient denies using all illicit substances, and you leave out marijuana, like, that could, if someone's reading that, like, that could change the game for something. Like, if a doctor's trying to treat something and you leave something out, you got to be careful.
Well, and I'm also curious as to, so in New York at least, I don't know about other states, I can only speak to New York. Before marijuana was legal, it was medicinally used, and part of the harm reduction program in New York was, if you could get medical marijuana if you were trying to be in recovery from opioids.
That's correct.
Right? And so I'm wondering now, with the laws kind of changing and marijuana being legal, like, how that affects that harm reduction approach, right? Like, if it does in any way.
Well, I would hope, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you. I mean, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but I would think before marijuana was legal, like for recreational use, the only way you could utilize medical marijuana is
with for
either
certain conditions.
right, but it would come in the form of a vape or a tincture, or a pill,
Hmm.
or something like that, it could be a lotion or whatever. Um, and the reason why we wouldn't accept patients in the outpatient program is because when we were drug testing people, we couldn't tell
If it
whether or
was
not it was because they were testing positive for THC because they were smoking like a joint or a blunt or whatever, or if it was because of the medical marijuana that they were getting from the medical dispensary. So I would think that, I mean, if I was a doctor and I was prescribing someone medical marijuana now, I would still say it's either a vape, a tincture, or an oil or something. I wouldn't give them smokable cannabis. No way.
yeah.
I
I'm
don't
just
think it would
curious.
change that.
I don't think so either, but I'm just curious as to like also like what that'll look like now that it's legal recreational if like people who were using that medicinally, right, are now kind of like, I don't need to go to the doctor, like I'll just buy some weed and smoke it. You know what I mean?
I think that again, I'm one of those people that likes to think everybody is good. Like I don't judge people. I don't like to have any preconceived notions about people, but I would think that the people that are using medical marijuana for what it was intended for, I don't think that legal marijuana is going to change things. I think maybe they might use recreational like smokable cannabis in addition to their medical regimen. I don't think they're going to completely abandon what they've been working on and have been maintaining for so long just because recreational weed is legal.
Yeah. I'm just curious, right? Because it's like something that like makes it like that was like a big part of New York's like push for harm reduction, right?
Hmm.
Was that. And so like again, I think sometimes like things obviously change and like what does that look like then?
Right. Right.
Um, in terms of, I know I've mentioned this before too, and another harm reduction model is not super popular in the US, but in Europe it's very popular for drinking is the Sinclair method.
Yes. Could you go over that again? Because I remember you mentioned it.
Yeah, so the Sinclair method, again, speak to your doctor about it. And if they don't know what it is, educate them and talk to them about how, like in Europe, they use this a lot. And it's using naltrexone pills, which we've talked about before as well, that can help reduce cravings for opiates and alcohol. But in this case, it's used specifically for alcohol. And basically, you only take the naltrexone pill when you're going to drink, and you take it, I believe, and I could be wrong. So again, don't like quote me on this, but this is what I've read and heard, and from my recollection is that you take it, I think, about an hour before drinking, whereas normally like naltrexone is taken every day, like in the morning, kind of thing. That's how we prescribe it in the U.S. normally, like well, doctors prescribe it in the U.S., right? But in Europe, doctors will prescribe it in that way that they use it only on days that they're drinking, about an hour before you take it, and you you drink,
Hmm.
right? And after most people report after like between 1 and 3 drinks, they typically do not want any more,
Hmm.
right? So people who are used to binge drinking in particular, that could be really helpful because they're not getting the pleasurable effects from the alcohol. It's not sending the same chemical signals to the brain to say, oh, this is awesome, keep drinking.
Right.
So, again, if that's something in terms of harm reduction that you might be interested in, there is a lot of information out there. Speak to your doctor, your provider. If they're not familiar with it, educate them on it, have them do some research. It could be a way to help reduce the number of drinks consumed,
Hmm.
which is harm reduction, right?
Yeah. Very interesting.
So,
Hmm.
you know, but even naltrexone itself is harm reduction in a lot of ways too. It is the way that it's normally prescribed in the U.S. by doctors. I'm taking it every day,
I think
even though
when
it's
go ahead.
medication assisted treatment and like it's the goal of not drinking at all.
Hmm.
People who happen to drink when they're taking their naltrexone every day or on the Vivitrol shot, they happen to drink. I've kind of heard similar things from patients is that like, well, it's not really like somebody described it as like, I used to eat like an entire container of Oreos,
Right.
right? Like like that was their thing. And I ate too and I didn't want any more. Right. And they were talking about alcohol, not Oreos, but like
Hmm.
one of those type of things where like I take this pill every day or I take the shot, I still tried to use alcohol, but it just doesn't do it. Like I don't really have the same desire. It doesn't provide the same effect anymore.
I think when you combine harm reduction practices with medication assisted treatment, I think it really does make for a relatively strong recovery program. And when you think about it, when you combine harm reduction techniques with medication assisted treatment and a strong therapy program, whether it be individual and or group therapy, like you got yourself something that if you stick to it, that is one hell of a program. And you're really setting yourself up for success in a
Yeah.
big way.
Yeah. Well, and remember too, using that medication assisted treatment, especially even if you continue to try to use, right? It is providing that experience of like, oh, this doesn't provide me with the results that I was getting before that I liked, right? So it kind of reinforces the idea of like, what's the point of using this?
Right.
Like, what's the point? There's no point here.
Right. Exactly. Um so we're I think we're over the hour mark, but I went live on the stream for like a good maybe 10-15 minutes before you came on. So we're like at, I want to say like 45-50 minutes.
Okay.
So do you want to cut do you want to stop now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Will you be
in
able to
terms,
record next week?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms
Um
of harm reduction, I think that's really like those are the major players
mhm.
in harm reduction, right?
Mhm. I would also say, I mean, I don't know if you would consider like drinking like zero proof liquor or like zero liquor alternatives are, considered a harm reduction uh, technique. But, again, if you're gonna be subjecting yourself to that atmosphere, like maybe being in a bar or being at a social gathering where people are drinking, at least you have a way of making it through that time without actually getting intoxicated.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Uh, it could be. I think the alcohol-free beers or wines they could potentially be harm reduction,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's also people that are abstinent only, and use that as their model of recovery that also sometimes use those things,
Right. Right.
you know. So I don't I think it can really kind of like gray area.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we'll stop. Thank you everybody for listening. That one viewer has been here this whole time. That's definitely a bot. There's no way that this one person just was just like, oh, these two people are talking about recovery. Let me just sit here for an hour and watch them. Like, there's
Yeah,
no
on a
way.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you for everyone that's listening to the recording after the fact. If you enjoyed the content today, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to us on all of the major podcasting platforms. Right now, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. If you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, drop us a comment, ask us a question. We really want to hear from you guys. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Get involved with our TikTok campaign. to get AJ McLean on the Sober Highway podcast. If you have any questions that you want Anika and I to answer on the podcast, or if you want to be a guest on the podcast, or if you just want to send us some information to share with our listeners, you can DM us on any of the social media platforms, or you can shoot us an email at thesoberhighway@gmail.com, and we will try our best to get back to you as soon as possible. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, I don't think so.
So in the coming weeks, guys, if you start to see me going solo or me adding guests here and there, given the announcement that Anika made earlier, you can kind of infer what's going on. And as we are able to, we will try to give you updates as possible, as you know, right? Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds about right. Again, I have several weeks still, but you never know when he'll want to make his debut. So,
and we can save the gender and the name of the baby until.
Well, I already said he a couple times, so people know that it's a he. But
okay, so it's a boy. Great. But we will update you guys as soon as we are able to. So again, thank you for listening. Follow, like, subscribe, reach out, do all that stuff, and we will catch you guys